Hey, Rex here. So I am reading an article titled, "Why is the ATF moving to ban common rifle ammo?" Now I stopped in the gun store today and I heard a bunch of folks talking about how they heard on the Rush Limbaugh show that Obama is now trying to ban AR-15 ammunition. Is this really true? What's really going on? What kind of ammo are they talking about? Well, I'm going to be completely 100% honest with you. No matter which side of the argument you stand on, I'll be honest with you. I'll tell you exactly what's really going on. What is the ammo in question? Okay? Now, it's the ATF interpreting some of the laws they've already had passed or whatever that is in question here. What we're talking about is this ammo right here. This is, well, the civilian designation is 223, but this is the 5.56 millimeter NATO round, okay? And this is the round that feeds this rifle. That's really why people are getting all scared, because it's this scary army guy looking rifle, right? Okay? That's what feeds that thing. And this is what is called the M855 round, okay? See that right there? M855. This is 5.56 millimeter, which is the military designation for the 223. Okay, it's a small cartridge. For sporting purposes, this would be appropriate for shooting coyotes, prairie dogs. Not quite big enough to shoot deer for those of you who might not be familiar with the, this kind of thing. But this is a 62 grain projectile. And specifically, this is the NATO designation of this round is the SS-109. It's a 62 grain green tip, and you can see the green tip on there. It's a lead core projectile with a steel tip. Okay, developed in 1980, I believe, or right around there for NATO, as a new round to replace the M193, which was the 55 grain weight bullet projectile. And this round had improved long-range performance, so not really long-range, but it had improved range characteristics, a higher ballistic coefficient, a little more weight, and drastically improved penetration performance. So this was developed for military, okay? And that's why people are grouchy in the ATF, because they have been receiving orders from El Presidente to start regulating this stuff a little heavier. And they're kind of really nipping around the periphery of what's going on here. This is one of the most popular rounds that there is for the AR-15. That's a very common round that a lot of guys shoot. Most of the barrel twists are kind of developed to stabilize that round. So most of your rifles are built to shoot that round, to accommodate the 62 grain bullets. That's why they changed the twist rate on a lot of these rifles. So it's a very commonly used round for target shooting. It's a very accurate round. A lot of guys do use it for sporting purposes. And but what you got to understand here is that people are arguing about this thing all wrong. So in the legal language, we're talking about the Gun Control Act of 1968, okay? And it defines armor-piercing ammunition, okay? Armor-piercing. As a projectile or projectile core which may be used in a handgun and which is constructed entirely from one or a combination of tungsten alloy, steel, iron, brass, bronze, beryllium, copper, or depleted uranium. So if you have a projectile that may be used in a handgun, that's key language there, made out of any of these items that's for penetrating, then you got a problem. So back in the day, there wasn't a lot of handguns that shot the 223 round in general, okay? That was a rifle cartridge. That is a rifle cartridge. However, now there are lots of pistol versions of the AR-15 and stuff like that, and there's a lot of the shorter barreled weapons configurations which are now classified as pistols. So now the ATF is thinking, now that this round could be used in a pistol, it now fits the criteria of an armor-piercing bullet as defined by the ATF as being used in a pistol. So now they're going to try to ban the thing because it's now under their new designation. The interesting thing is in 1986, they actually exempted those rounds from that. So the ATF is now trying to ban something that they exempted in 1986. Another interesting thing here is that a certain thing can be exempted from being defined as armor piercing if it is demonstrated that it is primarily intended to be used for a sporting purpose. So this is where I get a little grouchy and where I'm going to have to be a little bit honest. A lot of the pro-gun advocates are arguing that this is a sporting round. Okay? Now the M855, although it may be used for sporting purposes, honestly, it's not a sporting round. It's a military round. It's designed for penetrating Russian guys' armor when they're wearing their magazine packs and stuff, and they got all that stuff strapped on their chest. This is designed to pierce through that. So this is designed as a military purpose round. But here's the deal, guys. Since when did the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution have anything to do with sporting purposes? That's where we need to start training ourselves in reality. Because the Second Amendment of the Constitution never, ever intended anything about target shooting or shooting pop cans or shooting little pop-up targets or whatever. It has nothing to do with that. Or hunting. Doesn't matter. Do you really think the Founding Fathers thought that as a priority of the nation, the Second Amendment of the Constitution, not the 12th Amendment or the 32nd Amendment or whatever, however many times you want to go out there, the Second Amendment was really going to ensure their right to go play around with guns? Has nothing to do with that. It's for maintaining the freedom of the state, the liberty. It's for ensuring our libertarian birthright, which was purchased in blood from a tyrannical king back in the day. And to continue to maintain that birthright, we have to have kind of a constant threat of force that people wouldn't get out of control. That's the purpose of the Second Amendment. It's clearly written in the Federalist Papers. It's written in the Constitution. And anyone who's not smoking crack can realize that fact. If you think that the Second Amendment has anything to do with sporting purposes, you are smoking crack. And I think that the NRA needs to start being honest. I got a phone call from the NRA a couple months ago, and I thought I'd quiz them on a couple things, and the lady was asking for money, and I like the NRA. I think they're cool. They're a great lobbyist group, and they do a lot of good. But I asked her, hey, do you guys support assault rifles? And the lady on the other end of the phone, oh no, we don't. We're here for hunting rifles. There are certain rifles that are illegal. Fully automatic rifles. She didn't know what she was talking about. She didn't even know what the definition of assault rifle is anyways. And but the whole thing's off on the wrong foot. People are being tricked into thinking that this has anything to do with sporting. It has nothing to do with hunting. The Second Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with that. That was a side benefit of having arms. Obviously, back in the day, people needed a rifle to hunt for food in a lot of cases, you know. It wasn't a totally agricultural society at that point. Some people did need to hunt for food. However, it's not what it's talking about. Okay? So we need to be honest about that part of the discussion. Okay? The SS-109 or the M855 round, which is discussed as being controlled by the ATF as an armor purpose or as an armor piercing round. Yeah, it's designed as to pierce armor. It's a military round. But that's exactly why that round specifically is even more protected under the Second Amendment than any sporting round. The most protected weapons under the Second Amendment are rounds that are not developed for sporting. Your military arms are the ones the Founding Fathers intended us to have. So I just thought I'd get that off my chest because it's been annoying me, quite frankly, since I was old enough to comprehend these things. Okay? Now here's the deal. If we don't start being honest with our discussion, we're going to lose everything we got because we're playing under their new definitions of things. If they can just change the definitions of things and change historical reality and say that the Second Amendment had something to do with sporting, then we're arguing about whether or not this stuff has sporting purposes. Is AR-15 a sporting rifle? You bet. Retrofitted, it is an awesome sporting rifle. It's a civilian version of the M16 or whatever. So it kind of is a sporting rifle. But honestly, That's not the whole point of the deal. It's all supposed to be for maintaining the security of a free state, military arms. We need to be honest about that. Oh, that might sound radical. Well, if that sounds radical to you, maybe you should move to Russia or, some place like that where it's more to your liking, because this United States of America, you need to read a history book what happened here and how much it costs to maintain the liberties which we have secured, okay? Not trying to be radical, just trying to be realistic, trying to be honest with how the stuff works. Now, our grandfathers might have dropped the ball when I don't know what they're doing, watching sports or listening to the radio, or maybe they're too busy working hard back when they passed the first whole group of gun laws, back when they banned full autos back in the old days. Back when, it used to be buy a Tommy gun out of a Sears catalog for like $25 or whatever it was. And you didn't have a lot of problems. It wasn't until they started controlling that stuff when organized crime really had the tactical advantage over everyone else, because those type of weapons were so illegal for the civilians that they had a tactical advantage to own them. Okay? And likewise has proved itself in any other community where they have extremely tight gun restriction. They have the most crime. Try moving to Chicago or New York City where it's illegal to defend yourself, and that's where you're going to have the most crime. It's elementary stuff, and it's been argued so many times it's ridiculous that we continuously participate in this argument that's just basic elementary logic. Okay? We need to have a historically honest discussion on the issue. My father's generation kind of dropped the ball in 1968 when they allowed that whole mess to get passed through. We inherited a mess. Those of us in my generation, okay, we inherited a mess. It's true our fathers and grandfathers totally dropped the ball. How on earth did they let it get to this point, to where we are now trying to defend the Second Amendment on the premise that it has anything to do with a sporting round? It's absolutely crazy. Here's the deal. I'm now an adult. I can now call and complain to my congressman, okay? And that's the place where we need to start. Because if we don't start growing them and talking to people, it's going to grow into such a problem to where it's going to be a situation you don't want to be in, okay? So right now is the time to act. And I refuse to drop the ball on this. I'm going to be the squeaky wheel. Hopefully I get the grease. I'm going to insist that those of you out there are going to call your congressman and give them hell on this issue, really, because this is what ensures all the other amendments, is that this kind of thing don't get restricted. The second they start sticking their paws into this whole business, they have sinister intentions. Why would they be trying to declaw us? If they're going to be operating honestly and with honor, they have no worry about any kind of problems. What are they planning to do? What are they anticipating us to get so angry about? I mean, and the problem is that if you read a history book, it's pretty obvious what comes after this kind of situation. So I don't want to get there. So I say that my generation, let's not be like our fathers and our grandfathers who dropped the ball on this deal. Let's nip this one in the butt. Tell your congressman, write them, and there's a link here in the video. If you look in the description, there's a link. You click on there. It'll give you the fast track to basically write them a letter, fill it in. And you need to write these guys a letter or call them on the phone and harass them. If they try to start talking about some kind of sporting purposes, you need to ask them, excuse me, sir, are you even vaguely familiar with the history of this country? And if so, are you smoking crack to where you think that all of a sudden something's changed now and this has something to do with a sporting purpose? That's the discussion we need to have. We need to hold their feet to the fire. You can do it respectfully. But if we don't say something, it's better to use the First Amendment before you have to use the Second Amendment, okay? So that's my advice for the day. We don't want to get to that point because that's not going to be good for anybody. There's not going to be anything worth fighting for after we get to that point. So I hope that kind of clears up some of the confusion, and clearly identifies what exactly we're talking about, and if we have a more honest discussion, maybe it'll work a little better. And people might accuse you of being radical for that, but honestly, they just need to familiarize themselves with the history of the country and the purpose, and they just need to think about it for 10 seconds. Why would the founding fathers have a Second Amendment? What was the purpose of that? Just think about it in the historical context for 10 seconds, and it will become glaringly obvious what's going on. And it's just amazing how long we've been duped to participate in that discussion.